Welcome to HortTube. My name is Putnam. In this video, I'm going to be going through a list of things that I think through before I leave on vacation, leaving the garden here in Raleigh, North Carolina, Zone 7B. One of the things I'm going to start with is a little bit of pruning. I have a lot of annual flowers throughout the landscape and some perennials as well. And since I'm not going to be here for a little while, I think that I can cut some of these things back, and I'm not missing anything. By the time I get back into town, they'll already be flushing back out. This is a pollinator garden. It was built as a pollinator garden and designed as a pollinator garden. And so I don't want to take away all the flowers from the pollinators. But some of the ones that have stretched a little more than others, I'm going to take this opportunity to cut them back. Plus, I'm bringing in help to water, and I'll talk about that in a minute. There'll be something that they don't have to water if I've cut it back some. It will be using a lot less water. So I'm going to go through on some of my annual salvias that's along the turf back here, and just giving it a haircut, just giving it a bit of a haircut. Again, I'm not going to do all of them. I'm going to leave most of it in place. I'm definitely not going to cut the one over there that has a bee on it right now, but that's all I'm doing. That little bit of a haircut on these things will lower the water use for the time that I'm gone. Let me show you a couple other things I might think about pruning. I frequently talk on the channel about when you're summer planting something, you can cut them, you can prune them a bit, cut them back a little bit, and the plant will use far less water as it acclimates to its new home. I had this Alyssium on the back line, and last year it was planted, and almost every day throughout the summer last year it was in a full-blown wilt. And so before I left last summer, I took the opportunity just to go along and cut just a little bit off of it. It needed to be pruned anyway. It's in some shade back here and it's stretching. So, you know, it's wilting far less this year, but it is still acclimating to this space. And, you know, it's got some tree root competition back here. So this is a plant that before I leave, I'll just give it just a bit of a haircut, just like that. I'm not taking very much off of it, but that will eliminate the need that this thing has for water. Plus I needed to prune it anyway to, again, get it bigger, better, and fuller. Containers, including hanging baskets, are also in that I might prune them list. If it's something that I'm already having to water a couple times a day, or having to water heavily every day, you know, maybe the person that I'm asking to come and help me can only come every other day. Some of these things I might cut back. I've got a butterfly bush, a dwarf butterfly bush in this container, and it's gotten to the size now where it's really demanding quite a bit of water. So this is something I might take a third, 20-25% right off the top of this. That would be the case. If you got a foliage hanging basket and they're hanging down this far below the basket, you can just go right up to the bottom of them, and take a few inches right off the bottom, and that will reduce the amount of water that basket's using. Some of your baskets may have already gotten a little thin, or they're not performing quite as well. You might take the opportunity to prune them and fertilize them, and then set them down on the ground. What I'm about to do is move all of my containers to a shady space. So let's do that now. So I actually have somebody coming over to check on the watering, and I've got a lot of things in containers that are going to need water basically every day during this 90-degree heat. My established things that are in the ground will not need water anywhere near that much, but they might need water. And so it's a good idea, whoever you have coming over, whether it's a neighborhood, teenager, or a friend or whoever, to have them come over and kind of walk through what they might expect. The next thing I'm going to do, though, is make it easier for them. And I'm going to take I've got a lot of things in containers here that I've been doing some video work for, that I'm going to move over here into one section, and the water hose will be close to it. So it's going to make it much easier for them to do. When you have plants in containers like this, it'll be real tempting to just slam them up really close together. But if you're going to be gone for any length of time, you can really do some damage. So I'll still leave them with a little bit of space between each container. But again, I'm just going to tote them. I got a good spot back here that gets some sunlight, but it goes into the shade by the early afternoon. And so I'm just going to gather them up, 2 rows here, and that'll be a good spot for them, and I'll lay the water hose right next to it. everyone's garden is going to be different. If you have older established shrubs and not a lot of annual color and things like that, I mean, this probably doesn't apply to you. If you can water things really well before you leave, and you're fine. If you've got things that were planted, this year, this spring, and it's summertime and you're leaving for a week and a half, those are things that you're going to probably want to have somebody check on while you're gone. Again, a little bit of a haircut on something before you go, if it's something that's wilting every day, will help with that. Again, you could be removing flowers, pruning at the wrong time of year, but for me, getting a plant established is more important than the flowers on it for the first season. Of course, if you have an irrigation system, it might be a good idea to go through and run a cycle so that you can see it during the day. Sometimes people have their irrigation set for overnight periods or early in the morning. They're not necessarily seeing it run properly. So you might want to go through and turn on each zone, make sure everything's actually being watered properly if you're relying on an irrigation system and not another person to come and help you. If you do have somebody coming to help you and maybe you have a manual system, obviously that's something else you're going to want to invite them over and show them how it operates. Again, making things as convenient as possible for them is ideal. If your irrigation system is a manual sprinkler that you're moving around and you think that it might need to be run while you're gone on whatever part of your garden, your vegetable garden, your annuals and perennial shrubs, whatever. Again, that's another thing. You're going to want to show them where you lay it out, the subtle adjustments that we all know, on our kind of manual sprinklers. You'll need to show them. Over here in the vegetable garden, it's kind of important that you pick really well, very thoroughly pick your vegetables before you go, even some tomatoes that are not quite as finished as you'd normally pick them. We want to make sure we're getting those things off. If they come to seed while you're gone, it could potentially slow them down. So make sure you're picking them. Whoever you're inviting over or to do the watering, or if they don't want the produce, have a neighbor, come over and just tell them, the tomatoes are yours while we're gone. And it'll be a good idea to get tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, okra, especially, okra is another one too, that, once they get going, you can pick them almost every day. And so, that's what I'm doing. Another super beneficial thing, and this is true of any place in your garden, doesn't matter what it is, from a container to your plants in the ground, your vegetable garden. I've got mulch in between the rows. I didn't mulch the individual tomato plants or pepper plants or cucumber plants, but there is mulch between the rows here. And so any watering that gets done, that's helping to hold that moisture in place, and it will be super beneficial while you're gone, to have those places mulched. And of course, that's true with any bed. If you have a container, you're having to water and water and water, maybe a small amount of mulch, just a thin layer of mulch on the top of that container can go a long way to hold some moisture in place as well. Before I leave, I'm going to soak everything extremely well. So whoever is coming to take a look and help you out won't have to come, for probably 48 hours. So if you're going on a long, just a weekend trip, watering everything thoroughly before you leave is probably adequate, and maybe just have a neighbor come over and check your hanging baskets, something like that. Once you get gone longer than that, that's when, more of these details, come into play about putting everything together and making it as easy as possible for the person that you've put in charge to make it as easy as possible for them. I always tell people it's hard to teach people how to water. I mean, you've lived with your plants for, this summer so far, so you kind of know the watering schedule for them. The person coming in kind of doesn't. I always lean toward advising people to water less than they think they need to water. It's hard to overcome overwatering. So if they overwater your things while you're gone and just keep them too wet, you can end up with root rot and you have problems. So I tell them if they're trying to decide whether it needs water or not, leave it. And hit it the next day or the next time they come, because it's easier to overcome from something wilting and being slightly damaged, losing a few leaves from being, underwatered than it is overwatering, because overwatering will just kill them. Unless you had an automated irrigation system, I probably wouldn't be planting any new seedlings or anything right before you leave and giving that person that you've hired perhaps any more responsibility. Again, I'm trying to make this as easy as possible for whoever is coming in to work on this. when I'm on the road, I'm looking at the weather forecast. You know, I'm in Raleigh, so I'm looking at the weather forecast for Raleigh. You know, if it's going to rain in the afternoon, I might look at the radar and communicate with them, with the person who's you know, coming to your, you know, to your property to help you. Nobody likes an armchair quarterback, except in this case, because they're going to be nervous about taking care of your beautiful garden that you've created this year. So a little communication probably will help them out, and they will appreciate it, rather than being, why are they annoying me? You know, like we do so many times when somebody's trying to be the boss from a distance like that. But in this case, I think it's super, super helpful. There are times, sometimes folks think they'll see a weather forecast where it's a chance of thunderstorms tomorrow, and they go, well, it's going to rain. But I know, having lived here long enough, that a 40% chance of thunderstorms means it's a 60% chance that it will not rain tomorrow. So, you know, I'm still going to have them go through and water on a regular schedule regardless, and not base it on a weather forecast until it's actually raining. Additionally, definitely write everything down. That's helpful to anyone who's coming and helping you water. And I sat here because the houseplants are surrounding me. Houseplants are obviously something that, you know, if you're going on a short trip, you know, you can water them and then, you know, it's no big deal. But if you're gone more than, you know, maybe 4 or 5 days, you know the pattern. You know how often you're having to water your house plants. Some things, if you have one that's very root bound that you're having to water multiple times a week, might be a good idea to pop that thing up into a slightly larger pot before you leave. Then you can water it and you don't have to have anybody come and check on them. So there you go. There's some of the things that I'm doing, trying to make it as easy as possible for the person who's coming and helping me out while I'm on vacation. Thanks for watching.